Welcome to my kitchen. I am so glad that you joined me today. I am making our holiday favorite, and that is this Christmas pecan divinity. It is a family tradition, and it is also our family's favorite candy of the year. I want to take some of the fear out of making this delicious treat. Divinity has quite a reputation as being temperamental, and over the years I've developed some tips that takes the temperament right out of this candy. I would say that it is almost a no-fail recipe, and I want to show you how you can do it, and your family, I promise, is going to love it. Now, there are a couple of things that I feel like you really need for this recipe, and that's a standing mixer and also a candy thermometer. This takes all the guesswork out of it. It's a small investment and well worth it. I've had mine for about 20 years. And we're going to create a syrup for this candy that we're going to add to our egg whites that's going to whip up and make this delicious divinity. Well, let's get started on this. The ingredients are simple and easy, and this recipe makes about 40 pieces of candy. Now, there are several pieces missing. This is my husband's batch. This is his favorite thing in the world. So the first batch is always dedicated to him. Now, this second batch is going to a wonderful friend. So I'm going to bring you along with me, and we're going to make this together. The ingredients are super simple. I'm using 2½ cups of granulated sugar. And then to that, I'm adding a good healthy pinch of salt. Now, the salt isn't going to make it salty. It just balances the sweet. You can't even tell it's there. But actually, in baking recipes, salt makes the sugar taste sweeter. I know that sounds weird, but it's just the way that it works. Now, I'm also adding a ½ cup of tap water, just regular old tap water. And then the part that brings this all together and makes this delicious thing happen is white corn syrup. These ingredients are why this recipe has stood the test of time. The ingredients are so simple, inexpensive, and readily available. You know, back in the day, you couldn't make this in the summer months before air conditioning, I do believe, because you can't whip the eggs with humidity. But now with air conditioning and standing mixers, it's taken all the guesswork out of that. I've got all of my ingredients in my saucepan. And I will say that you want to use a heavy bottomed saucepan, and you want to use a saucepan with a good sturdy handle. You'll see why this handle is so important later. But I'm going to mix this together and just stir it until I know everything is completely mixed. And then I'm going to put this on the stove. Just looks like a white creamy paste. But when this cooks up and starts bubbling and gets to that 260 stage on the thermometer, this is going to be a shiny, clear, just almost magical syrup. I love it. Well, I want to show you something else too. I also have a pot of water back here. And in a minute, I'll tell you why that is so important. And it's one of the tricks that I definitely learned that helps me along the way with this candy making. I'm going to turn my temperature to about a medium. I'm going to let that sit for just a minute, and we'll be right back, and I'll show you what happens to this stuff. I've just stirred this mixture for the last time. I'm turning my heat up to a medium high, and I'm going to wait for this to boil. And once it does, I will insert the candy thermometer. Now, it takes about 5 to 7 minutes for the syrup to come up to temperature. And it seems the last 10 degrees takes the longest. Now this is starting to boil. Look at that. Perfect. Now I'm going to insert my candy thermometer. And I just want to make sure it's not touching the bottom. And see how I have that marking right there? That's going to make it a lot easier for me to see. That's why I did that Sharpie, because if not, I'd be getting my magnifying glass out and saying, okay, is it there yet? And believe it or not, I have done that before. So I've learned how to make my life just a little bit simpler. See how this is already starting to crystallize? This is going to make this beautiful marshmallowy, pillowy creation. Whoever invented this really did a spectacular job. I'm going to let this do its thing, and now let's go over to our egg whites. The hardest part is just leaving it alone.
I'm going to let this boil until the temperature reaches 260 degrees. This will take several minutes.
My syrup is back there doing its thing, and it's got about 20 more degrees. This is the waiting game right here. And in the meantime, I am going to show you about the egg whites. Now, this recipe calls for 2 egg whites, and you won't believe what this will do when combined with the syrup. When I first started making this recipe, I thought, how can 2 egg whites make 40 pieces of Divinity? Well, it definitely does. Now, to separate your egg whites, just break your egg and then toss the egg yolk back and forth, and then you've got your separated egg. Let's do the other one. Now, it's important that your eggs are room temperature. If you don't have a lot of time, just put them in some warm water and let them sit for a few minutes, and they'll be just fine. Just going to go ahead, get this last one here, and I'll save those for later. Let me check on my temperature. It's getting close, the last 10 degrees. Now, one of the tricks that I found that works really well for me for this recipe and causes it to be almost a no-fail is adding some dried egg whites. That's all this is. And to these 2 egg whites, I use about 1/8 of a teaspoon, give or take just a little. You know what? I'm going to give just a little. And that's going to ensure that these whip up, put that back on there, nice and fluffy and do not fall. You need your whisk attachment. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this now is because if I did it before I started the syrup, the egg whites would fall before I could add my syrup. So I'm putting this on high and letting it do its thing.
Whip the egg whites on high speed until stiff peaks form.
All right, let's check these. I think this is going to be perfect. Yes. Nice stiff peaks. Just going to get all of that off of my whisk. Now you could use the whisk the entire time. No problem at all. But I like to use the paddle attachment from this point on because it's easier to get the candy out. The whisk can be a little complicated. So I'm going to switch to this, and now we're going to add our syrup. It's come up to temperature, and I'm going to dip this. See this? This is my hot water, and it is, to me, the best tip of all when making this recipe. You'll see why in a minute, but it makes cleanup So easy, and it also makes spooning out the Divinity so easy. All right, now here we go. What we're going to do is add this syrup into our mixing bowl in a very, very thread-like stream. This is going to take 2 to 3 minutes, and it's going to feel like it weighs 100 pounds before it's all over with. So stay with it. It's worth it. Here we go.
Be patient with this process. It takes a little time. Once your syrup is completely added, keep your mixer on high speed. It takes about 5 minutes for the candy to start holding its shape.
It's starting to thicken up, but it's not ready yet. But I'm going to go ahead and add my vanilla. I've got a little over a teaspoon here. A little extra never hurts. I don't want to add the vanilla when the mixture is really hot because it cooks the vanilla flavor out. So you want to add it towards the end, and we're almost there. We're ready. And just like that, it happens. Look at this beautiful, pillowy mixture. It looks amazing. Now, as you can see, I have spread out some parchment paper here. I don't even bother putting it on a cookie sheet. I just feel like it takes such little time to dry out, and one less step or one less dish involved always makes it good for me. That didn't come off as easy as I thought. Now I'm going to stir in the pecans. I'm adding a cup of toasted pecans. I put them in the microwave for 2 minutes at 50% power, and that is perfect for me. All right, now I'm going to show you where the hot water comes in. Back in the day, they would call a friend to help them do this because the candy hardens up so fast that they couldn't dip it out. It would get too hard before they could actually bring it out of the pan or get it out of the pan. Well, what I'm going to do is sit my mixing bowl on top of this hot water, and I'm going to start scooping it out. I've got 2 spoons here. My first spoon is going to be this. I want to put that in my mouth so bad. Now what you're going to do is take your 2 spoons and you're just going to slide this off. Now I don't want this to get too warm, but I don't use cooking spray or oil or butter. A lot of people put that on their spoons. I don't want any oil in this at all. So I wash my spoons, and then this is so easy to spread and dip out. Now, don't worry about the water. It's going to dry. It's going to evaporate completely. Now, this takes a little time, but if you're doing it by yourself, this definitely will help you along the way. And look how pretty those already look. Oh, might be hard to keep this second batch from my husband. This definitely calls his name, as well as many other family members that I have. This is without a doubt a family favorite. My grandmother used to make it, and I wish I could go back and talk to her, because she made it back in the day when there was no air conditioning and no standing mixer. My husband said that he used to watch his mother make it by hand with no mixer. So hats off to the women that kept this tradition going. I'm not sure if I would have went to all that trouble back then. I am thankful for our modern day conveniences. Now, I'm going to continue to do this until all of my candy is spooned out. And if it gets hard, I am going to put it back on my water. I'm getting to the last part of the bowl. Now, I don't scrape the sides here because the sugar has crystallized, some of the vanilla popped up. That's why I like to add a little bit extra, because it always pops up on the side and doesn't get down into the recipe. Now this starts getting a little sticky, even though I'm using the water that's at the bottom of the pot. So again, I'm putting it on top of this hot water and keeping it warm, and I'll show you as it starts getting just a little, I don't know, just not as pretty as the rest of them. Dip your spoon in that hot water and just pull it together, and then just make you a little swirl like that. And if you want to put pecans on top, a whole pecan, by all means do that. I'll add a piece at the end, but I probably won't put a whole pecan on top. Just gonna dip my spoon there. And that water is already dried up, and I may turn this just a little bit, drop that in there. This makes cleanup easy. Even now, scraping the bottom of the bowl, it's pillowy and it's light and it's sweet, but believe it or not, it's not too sweet. It's perfect. Now I'm going to show you the last thing I do with this hot water. This is one of my favorite parts. This bowl can be hard to clean out. So I take this hot water and I pour it right on in. Got my spoon back there. I'm gonna put this in the sink and let it sit. My husband always says, I put the dishes on soak for you. So I'm putting the dishes on soak for me. I'll see you back here in a minute and I'll show you how to make a beautiful presentation with this candy. Well, the Divinity is completely ready. It's all dry and ready to be packaged up. Now, I've put some of it in this cute little dish. I picked these up throughout the year, and I am going to make this look beautiful. I've got some of this clear wrap paper. I love this stuff. It makes everything pretty. And I'm just going to roll some of this out and put this in the middle. I'm keeping the tag on it because I want my friend to know that that's a little gift for her. And just making sure that it comes up on both sides. Looks perfect. And I'm going to cut this and set that aside. Now I've cut some ribbon. I've gotten some Christmas ribbon, and I've got 3 different pieces here. And what I'm going to do is take the 4 corners. It always helps to have somebody else in the kitchen with you when you do this. An extra pair of hands never hurt. And just going to wrap it around like that. And I'm going to take this ribbon and tie it up in a pretty bow. There we go. And pull it all out. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the top off and make it all nice and even. Now, last but not least, I have something special that I want to give my friend, and that's a Christmas ornament. I painted these a few days ago and just want to add a little keepsake to put on the tree so that she can remember our friendship. I'm going to hang that right there. Now, isn't this adorable? I can't wait until my friend sees it. You know, in the Bible it says that a man's gift makes room for him. So I can guarantee you that whoever you give this gift to will make room for you this holiday season. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining me. God bless.